Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Mike Fox with us. He's been helping small to mid-sized technology companies recruit leadership candidates who have fit and grit for more than 30 years. So that's a lot. Bright Lights have been existing for 17 years. So we've got a great experience with us today. We're going to talk about recruitment. We're going to talk about tech. We're going to talk about mindset and everything in between. Mike is in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I am Charles Cormier, your host. If you want to learn more about this podcast, you can go to ceowisdompodcast.com. And if you want to start or scale or be invited to podcasts like this one, go to podpire.com. Mike, welcome to the pod. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and about Bright Lights?
Sure, Charles. Thanks for having me on. So I got involved in the recruiting business in a rather roundabout way about 30 years ago. I had had experiences with recruiters, and they had never been particularly positive, fairly superficial relationships, didn't seem to be particularly interested in who I was, and no knowledge or not a lot of knowledge of the business and the companies that they were involved with or that they were recruiting for. And so I ran into a fellow on the street. I got laid off in one of the recessions back in the 90s. I ran into a fellow on the street, and he said, we're looking for people. I said, well, what do you guys do? And he said, well, we're recruiters. And I said, well, I am not interested in the recruiting business. So I had all of this negative experience with the industry, and but yet I met a number of the people that were in the company, and they were impressed me. So I joined, and I struggled for about a year because with all of the negative baggage that I brought with me, and then after about a year or so, something just clicked. And I think the thing that clicked was the ability to really help people in their lives and their careers, and also help companies make good decisions about the hiring model and about they're hiring the right candidates. And the terminology I use is fit and grit, and especially for the early stage companies I work with. And so one thing led to another, and 30 years later, I'm happy to do what I do, and honored to help people in their careers and in their lives. It's been a great journey, and a lot of interesting personalities involved throughout the process, to say the least.
Right. So for positions, I'm not sure if like this podcast is like the best to talk about like how folks can get job, except if you can give some hints on like exact positions like CFO, CEO, for example. That could be fun, but tell me about the general job market at the moment. The economy is pretty slow this year, and me, I'm quite bullish on AI tools. I have slashed most of my team, and I'm outsourcing to AI nowadays, and the productivity is like 250 to 1,000% up. And I'm thinking that other smart business owners are also in that path. What is your opinion on that? And tell us about the macro trends that might be playing in the balance here.
Yeah. Well, I think the world has been extremely frothy for the last few years. As much as we were locked down during COVID, there's a ton of money that's been thrown and spent, and everybody in the tech sector specifically was awash in it, what with e-commerce. So I think what we're coming back to is a new norm. If I'm not mistaken, the numbers seem to show that the sort of EBITDA as well as the size of the companies in the tech sector are back to pre-pandemic days. So maybe we had a bit of a blip on our hands. I mean, the biggest challenge I think for candidates, and whether it be executives or at the at more operational level, is to connect and to show their value that they bring to the companies. And the challenge is the internet, and the challenge is disintermediation, and the challenge is lack of communication, and the challenge is lack of personal connection, and et cetera, et cetera. And especially with people working remotely, that connectivity, that tissue that binds people and communities together is gone the way of the dodo bird a little bit for the last number of years. And that's really, I don't know how that gets fixed, to be honest with you. That's the big challenge. How do you differentiate yourself in a sea that looks exactly just like you, if you look at the tsunami of resumes that float around on the internet? Without that sort of showing of value add that you bring, all you are is just more noise. So the one thing I can say without a doubt is that if you ask yourself, so what? on your resume and you ask yourself, so what, in the conversations that you have with people. And if you have to keep talking, it means you haven't gotten, and that means having to keep talking on the resume as well. It means you haven't gotten to the benefits of the client, right? So the fact that you led a team of 5 people, well, so what? Well, we led a team of 5 people and we struggled against 3 different competitors, and we found a way to be successful and we increased productivity by 30%. Well, okay, so that's the so what. And so unless you can bring that forward, then you're going to be challenged with this mountain of other people that look and sound and appear just like you in the scheme of things, and that's hard. And also, I obviously, the fact I've been recruiting for 30 years means I like people, right? Like, I really appreciate people, and unless you, the only way of really connecting with people, in my mind, Zoom just does not do it, and the like, is meet people, right? Talk to them, understand where their pain points are, understand who they are, understand what their life stories are, share your life story, etc. Create a bond of some sort, and when that happens, then they're willing to open up their kimono. They're willing to open up connections with you, and also there's a human touch that we are sorely lacking these days, in my humble opinion. Yeah.
Right. So how is that going to impact the market? What does that mean for people? How can people adapt? I picture a future in which everyone has an AI to fetch them contracts. Everyone would be freelancers and working for themselves if there's that system to find them job. That is
Yeah.
probably like 5-10 years in the future. But yeah, what do you see in terms of
Well,
outlook?
but I understand your perspective, and I respect it. I guess I would just say is that as much as AI is going to help some people, right, who truly are differentiable, like, and really magical in whatever background they have or whatever experience they've created or whatever value that they've done, which is really exceptional. Otherwise, then the other 99.9% are just going to get lost in the shuffle of life, right? Because AI, this magic AI that we've got, is going to send us one answer. I mean, look at Google's business model. Right now, they've got this huge business of search, which they pretty much own to a great degree. And all of these companies that place ads on Google, right, and spend money to be in their search body, now are gone, because the AI is going to give the customer one answer, whoever that, or 5 answers as opposed to 5,000 answers. So the business models change, but ultimately, I don't think AI is the magic tool. Ultimately, you still have to show the value that you bring, and that happens. I mean, the thing that I find is people think that the only people they should connect with are ones in their industry, right? So if I only know, like, if I'm looking for a job, right, and the only people I should be talking to are people in my industry, right, because they only know people in the industry, and that's not true. Like, I mean, we all know that for a fact. Your neighbor, your friend, whatever, they know 20 people or 30 people, and they're comfortable. They know you intimately. So let me throw this idea at you, and think of it as 3 concentric circles, right, that exist. So at the core, excuse me, are people that know you intimately. They know and care about you, and they're happy to make connections for you. Next are people maybe that have sold to you, you've sold to them, you have some sort of relationship, insurance sales guy, your priest or your rabbi or whatever the case may be. And then third is the great unwashed, right, which is the internet and LinkedIn and Facebook and whatever the case may be. So if you're out looking for work, then you focus in on the first 2 tiers and show them, tell them what you're looking for, and ask them for help in finding contacts. I don't know, maybe that's old fashioned, but I think the human connection is still magical in what it produces.
Right. No, I mean, it is magical. I think the AI is still not human level, obviously. So, but it will get there pretty much soon. I think the data is there. I
But
think
what?
the IQ is
Yeah.
there. I just think that the companies and the startups building that probably have something similar, but are not like public. So I think it's about digging these these companies. So for example, on this podcast, I have the AI Wisdom podcast, and I'm trying to dig these companies and find out more about them, or at least they have the roadmap, right? And the vision to accomplish that, which we just mentioned. Maybe they like the funds or something. So I think pretty much everything is there. I think first, a lot of folks don't have that we're talking, that magic touch that you and I are talking right now. A GPT can help them. And if we're talking about Mike or Charles level outreach or human touch, right? That warmth. I think sometimes I'm low energy, right? And if my brain is like not 9 on 10, a GPT is definitely gonna outpace my current 7.5 on 10 brain. I'm not always super caffeined up, and I need kind of that state to
Right.
like add massive value and create that magic, that 9.5 on 10. Now, I do think that the biohacking industry, which is like optimizing your brain, I do think that's going to grow as well. I don't ever think that 0.1 percenters will disappear, but I think that the rest of folks that are not hyper competitive, are not like super entrepreneurial, I think that these folks will have a hard choice to make. Either you want to work, find a purpose, and add value to others on this planet Earth, or sort of retire, right, and enjoy their life, whatever, because that's going to be possible in the future. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's a really ideal aspiration that you have, and I don't know how it plays itself out in that people get fulfillment out of work, people get fulfillment out of their community, people get fulfillment out of providing for their family or providing for their neighbors, etc. And so, I mean, we see what's going on with unrest in society because of the schism between the 1% and 99%. The middle class has been squeezed out in the last 20, 30 years. People's salaries have not risen, for the first time in 2 generations, that people feel like opportunity is not what it was for their parents, et cetera. And they're angry and frustrated. And so that creates opportunity, but it also creates revolution. Or social upheaval. So you've talked to a lot more people about this than I have, Charles. I hope what you're saying is right. I just don't know what the fallout will look like, and I don't know how it plays. I know there's fulfillment that I get in the work that I do, and I think that's the case for the vast majority of people. And I don't know how you reprogram people, when only 80% of them or 70% are truly happy.
Right. I think that fulfillment thing, especially for men, let's say, historically we've been hunters and we brought back the meat to the fire. Women would cook it and then we'd eat and have that social connection. I think indeed it is wired into us. And I mean, women still had a purpose back in these days. So there's no like men or women thing here. I do think that this is reprogrammable because fulfillment, yeah, because it's hard.
Wow.
It's hard
Wow.
to see, because if there is, like an AI that can add more value than you, even to society, like not talking about money, because UBI, which is Universal Basic Income, I think it's gonna start rolling out. Actually, it started rolling out with WorldCoin by Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI,
Yeah,
but
I
it's
know.
not
Yeah,
taking
yeah, yeah.
any like velocity for now. But I do think that in 5 to 10 years, there's gonna be big velocity, and that's when also AGI should hit. Basically, I do think that humans are rewirable, but it's not like ideal scenarios that I have in my brain. It's like people putting these headsets on and finding fulfillment in a virtual world, because robots might be 1,000 times better at adding more value. There's also the merging with humans, but let's stick to the present. And 2023, I think it's been like a year that's been tough for people, like you mentioned, with the inflation in Canada. You go to the grocery store and it's just bonkers, the prices.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
literally 1.8x in the span of a couple of months. So what do you feel at the level of your clients, is it easier for them to get a job? Are new jobs being created? What's the outlook for this year and the next?
It's going to be challenging for the next few years. I think, with the sugar high that was created during the pandemic and the amount of VC funds and also amount of money that was printed, created a sort of a bubble, if you'll excuse the expression, of companies that were sort of aspirational but not particularly inspirational. They didn't really create a whole lot of value out there, and so a lot of these companies are going bye bye, and or will die over the course of the next 6 months to a year because there's no follow on funding. So it's going to be a hard market in the tech sector. I mean, other areas will pick up slack and the like, but that this happens to be the world that I live in, and so my only posit for people that are out trying to understand the marketplace is to talk to people. And again, that's I'm sawing the same horse, but understanding the marketplace doesn't really make a difference, right? Because at the end of the day, all you need is one offer, right? That's all you need is just one job offer. And that oftentimes will happen through word of mouth and through personal connection and or a specific niche that you've created for yourself. Because if you're a genericist, if you're just one of the many that are out there, you're stuck, you're challenged, like it's just all it is a bunch of noise, So
Right.
I say niche the crap out of yourself, prove what your differentiator is, what your true differentiator is, whether that be business wise, whether that be writing wise, whether that be whatever your skill sets are. Write a few articles, write 2 or 3 articles, put them up online, target some companies that you're interested in through direct contact. Use Crunchbase, use whatever tools, use ChatGPT to find out the types of companies that are in your particular area or geography and that are in your vertical market, and focus on those and the like. Read the websites, find out what their pain points are, or ask ChatGPT what their pain points are over the last 3 years, and target your skill set into those and be hyper focused. And people get really freaked out over the fact that, well, if I'm too nichey, it means I'm going to miss out on opportunities that don't exist. But I totally disagree with that. The more specific you are, the more ability people will have to find you as an expert in what you do, and the easier it will be for you to narrow down and target in. Because otherwise, there's just too much noise out there, too many candidate or prospects and stuff, and you blow your wad, right? You're running around like a chicken with your head cut off.
Right. And from the business perspective in tech, like what trends are you seeing? Are there positions that are being recruited right now and that are highly needed? And if you can also comment on the HR perspective, how have you seen HR managers change their strategies in tech this year?
Yeah, it's a good question. In terms of specific jobs, it's really spotty, right? Like, I mean, there's no particular trends. Sales jobs are going the way of the dodo bird because sales becomes such a unique orientation, right? The traditional role of the salesperson is sort of being taken over by sales engineers in technology companies, right? Because the sales role per se, the customer's already 78% through their buying cycle by the time they actually talk to a prospect. I can't speak to that because the world I live in is very boutiquey, and so you would be able to see that on Indeed or on ZipRecruiter, et cetera. And type in or ask ChatGPT what are the biggest jobs, the most promising jobs. But that's irrelevant to people, right? Like what the trends are to the industry at large is irrelevant to the individual who has a particular skill set that's looking for a particular challenge. So again, the more you niche yourself, the easier it is to find out data on that, the easier it is to focus then in on what the solutions for that are. And in terms of HR roles and the like, is they're gonna get their lunch eaten by AI. So much of the function that they have historically and the like is sort of administrative oriented, and that's an area I think that's really going to get beaten up unless you've got a particular expertise or a particular knowledge set that makes you valuable to the organization as opposed to just an administrator.
Right. And technology wise, what have you seen change in these companies?
Well, programmers are gonna get hammered also, in my humble opinion. Like the role, so much of the basic programming skill sets and the like can be done by artificial intelligence. I have a friend of mine who's the CFO at a fairly large organization and the like. And he 6 years ago or 8 years ago, there was a problem that they had in the company, and he was the only one who could actually put together this macro on the spreadsheet that would come up with the solution that needed to be done, because it was a fairly, like, wasn't a particularly technologically oriented organization. So he put this spreadsheet together, and now he's about to retire and the like, and she's trying to pass it on. And I said, so let's plug this into Chat GPT. So we plugged in the parameters that they were looking for, and it spit out the spreadsheet in the span of 30 seconds. And this was something that only he had the sort of the keys to the gate on. So in terms of technology, I your guess is as good as mine as to where the demands are going to be in terms of what language comes up next, because the languages are speeding up in terms of adoption, and also in terms of how quickly they're sunsetted.
I think that
So
programmers that
and my
can,
apologies. Sorry.
I think that programmers that can go hybrid into like being more creative and being more entrepreneurial, if these programmers can code a bunch of agents that will do the work for them, I think that these folks will be like at the top of society. But if you're a programmer that just follows order and is like, yes sir, I'm gonna code that, I don't think most programmers are that, because they're like amazing problem solvers as well. Are they visionary, most of them? I don't think so, but
No. Like, if you put them on the bell curve, they're the same as the world at large. Like, I mean, 20% are hyper effective, 20% are, why am I here? And 60% are in the rest of the sort of the bell. And then you take the combination of the bell curve and the 80-20 rule, and you've got, so at the top 20%, you got 20%, the 80-20 rule, right? Pretty much everybody knows that. The top 20% of the 20% means 5% are hyper performers, and the rest of them are sort of, you put them somewhere in between. So I mean, the impact of AI, artificial intelligence, on programming, I think, is pretty straightforward. Like, that a good portion of the jobs are grunt, right? So some people will be either, their skill sets are maybe architecturally oriented. They understand the infrastructure of the coding and the implications that they have in terms of the cloud. Some people are really, really strong at interfacing with clients and acting as that interface between the needs of the business and the actual coding and the like, and acting as that interface. And that is clearly is key, because the reality of code is that 80% of the code is never used, right? Some company buys a big ERP application and 80% of it sits and never gets used. So there's opportunities for huge improvement in that, needless to say, but a lot of it'll be automated. I'm I've, over the course of the last few years, I've been anxious about, the world at large, because of jobs and job losses, et cetera. And this has not made it any easier in terms of where AI is going and what the implications are. And maybe I'm hoping I'm totally wrong. I'm hoping that we will see nothing but a renaissance.
I don't think you're wrong. Fortunately and unfortunately, I think, what will happen precisely is an event somewhat like COVID, in which people are gonna panic for a while, but then after that, it's gonna be really peaceful, with birds chirping. So
Well, Charles, Charles, they may have said that at the time of the French Revolution as well. So there was
and
a
his friends better
fair amount
today.
of mayhem created therein.
Yeah, no, there will be that mayhem for sure, but I mean, COVID, like, is the only analogy that I can have sensibly, because it's the probably only crisis, quote unquote, that I lived in this life. But yeah, I think I was about to say, like, should people have like some cash cushion to get through that period? Because if it's like COVID, it's the government dropping parachutes on people for like 6 to 12 months, and then the market eventually adapting. Because it's adaptation rate. If an AI is adapting 2, 3, 10x on a daily basis, let alone if a human cannot adapt 1.1x, it's hard to change as a human. It's hard to gain new skills. It's hard to face the pain and keep on going through the pain. I mean, we're very much adaptable creatures, but
yes, we are, but I mean, it's also, we're Darwinian by nature, right? So some will wildly succeed, et cetera, and then they will continue to propagate into the future, et cetera, and others will fall and also struggle and hopefully try and reform themselves in some way, shape, or form. The the challenge that exists in society is that as that process is going on is for people to feel that they are of worth and of value, as opposed to try and break everything apart and destroy it. I mean, this is at the whole basis of whether or not capitalism is the right way of is sort of a model that is for the future and that is effective, or whether there's other options available. And that's a beer conversation as opposed to the 20-minute podcast,
Yeah, but
to
I'm
say the
gonna try
least.
to simplify that one. Like capitalism doesn't scale infinitely, like with AI oligarchs, we're gonna see them, and I actually intend to be one of them, but I want to put a limit to my wealth, because at some point you're just destroying the world. If you're talking about the bell curve, I think that would be an accurate analogy. I don't want to go in the zone in which I'm taking. My wealth needs to be redistributed. It needs to create other wealth, because capitalism in its purest form, it doesn't scale. If you go in the Donald Trump form of capitalism with no ceilings and just like get, it doesn't scale, because at some point you're taking, it doesn't even make you happy at some point, the
Well,
cash. And I think you will need to tell your AI, look, when I get whatever is your number, I don't know, 7 million or 70, you need to stop, and do not burn the planet in the process, and do not put others to the ground in the process.
well,
So
Charles, we're talking about stuff that's really that's beyond my pay grade and probably beyond yours also. But I just hope this. I just hope that the powers to be who are trying to create this tool or these tools, that they have the same sort of sense of what's the word, of reasonableness that you're trying to put into it. Because billionaires feel that they don't have enough. You know, it's, yeah, human nature is unique. And yeah. Anyways,
yeah,
I
it's the
I
hedonic
hope I hope
treadmill.
I hope they're able to put an attenuator on these things. We'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah. Hedonic treadmill is
Yeah.
definitely a phenomenon. The biochemistry in our brain is, yeah, it
Yeah,
goes some
but
way. You
but
keep
but if I could, we should sort of circle back, because I know we're getting late in time and stuff also. But at the end of the day, AI may be the end all be all, may be wildly successful, and may turn our world into a euphoric playground that we all are fulfilled and find happiness in some way, shape, or form. Chances are not, but that may happen. But at the end of it, and I think this has been proven over and over again, is people's happiness and people's sense of fulfillment comes from relationships. It comes from connecting with people. It comes from gaining solace or gaining happiness from helping other people, etc. And as corny as that sounds, it's a proven fact. And so let's just get out there. Let's talk to people. Let's interact with the world at large. Let's find happiness in the small ways that we can, and the like, and give fulfillment to other people by giving back. And what goes around comes around, in my humble opinion. And I think that's a good place to be going as a human being.
fully agree with that. In 3 words, show some heart. Where can people find out more about you, Mike?
Sure. My company's name is Bright Lights. Brightlightsinc.com is the website, just as it sounds. And if anybody wants to connect with me, mfox@brightlightsinc.com. Happy to have a conversation. Happy to reach out and give everybody a hug.
And I am Charles Cormier, host at ceowisdompodcast.com. If you want to start scale, be invited to podcast, go to podfire.com. That was Mike Fox.